Ever since Dragon Ball, Saint Seiya, Yu-Gi-Oh! And series of that time encouraged the theme of characters having different states and forms, the anime/manga industry has been following that recipe inspired to make creative forms for so many years. Different clothes, numbers and percentages, complete change of looks and addition of tools and weapons has been a clear reflection and indication of one's state of power. In One Punch Man, however, and specifically regarding Saitama, the term we use to describe his states before attaining astonishing power is simply saying Saitama with hair.
彼はリミッターが外れていた。
So in today's video, we will take a look at what will happen if Saitama in that period of time fought, challenged or encountered any of the S-class heroes. Would he be able to compete against them or would it still be too much for him to handle? But before that, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for more of these One Punch Man videos. Thank you. When establishing the Hero Association, an organization that seeks to protect the humankind from monsters, there were some individuals that simply were a cut above the rest, completely outclasses the others in the strength department, so much so that they needed a class of their own. And the two qualities they instinctively had that others lacked are the mindset of thinking big and the complete disinterest in position and rankings. This is literally the case for Saitama himself, except that he has never been seen defeating a monster or saving others. Reasons being is obviously due to King unintentionally snatching and getting the credits for Saitama's achievements and him fleeing the scene just after he defeats the monsters. This is exactly why, despite him clearing the strongest threats that humanity has ever encountered, nobody really recognizes the hero. Which certainly means that Saitama prior to getting bold would have been an S-class hero, possibly being one of the strongest in the entire association. However, let's take a step back to see his feats and achievements during the years of training and figure out how strong was he compared to the other heroes. You see, even prior training, many could argue that Saitama was already physically on the A-class heroes tier due to defeating a tiger level monster called Crablands. This is clearly derived according to a bonus chapter that specifically stated in order to defeat a tiger level monster, you'd need the strength of 5 heroes of class B and 1 of class A. This actually gets substantiated with the picture of the monster they showed, which in fact was Crablands, the same one Saitama defeated in chapter 2. The point is, many could say that this was done intentionally for the purpose of implying or telling the readers that Saitama was already as strong as an A-class hero without even training, otherwise why even show that specific monster? But the things that happened after and the statement the databook provides clearly suggest that this was actually a fluke. Saitama simply exploited a huge weakness that allowed him to eventually defeat the monster. Him being durable enough to withstand heavy hits doesn't mean anything, since we've seen other normal human beings in this verse taking punishment from far stronger beings. This is also substantiated with the fact that Saitama, after a few days of training, still struggled with a tiger level monster, as seen in King's flashback where Octopus Clone Man was able to injure him despite training for a few days, which means that Saitama till this point is still on the level of an A-class hero. 300 days of training Saitama, however, is pretty weird. You see, despite training for almost a year, he was still getting crushed by a tiger level threat, the Boxer monster. I mean, don't get me wrong, the only reason Saitama was off guard was because of the stinging pain he had because of a bad tooth, stating that his body was just not operating as usual. However, as soon as he lost that tooth, he was able to one-shot this monster easily. You see, the only reason we don't declare him as an S-class hero level is because he was still injured by a tiger level monster. However, we've seen a case like this before with Suiryu, who's obviously an S-class caliber, getting damaged by attacks from one of the 3 crowds that presumably is around tiger level threats, since they were defeated by Snack and Lightning Max. Although just before that, Suiryu was heavily damaged by Goketsu, who's one of the strongest dragons we've ever seen, which may have left him in a very vulnerable state. But nonetheless, the fact that Saitama easily one-shotted him after can mean that he's considered considerably stronger than an A-class hero, especially when accounting for the massive range between a few days and almost a year of training. So either a top dog in the A-class category or possibly already an S-class hero. Now, a year and a half training Saitama is a complete beast, shown in a bonus chapter called Summer, where he low defs a demon level monster with one single punch while searching for a toilet. Narratively speaking, the general criteria for a hero to be included in the S-class category is to be able to defeat a demon level monster on their own. We've seen this in chapter 122, where Metal Bat and Watchdog Man defeated monsters on that level. Although Saitama didn't just defeat a demon level monster, but in fact was able to one-shot it with ease. The general problem here is the inability of quantifying how strong this monster is. Could be a low, mid, high, or even an above demon. Since, for example, one-shotting a creature like Bug God is much more impressive than one-shotting the Deep Sea King. And we've literally seen many characters who can one-shot demons easily in the S-class category. Pre-G4 Genos was able to two-shot the Deep Sea King in the audiobooks, Atomic Samurai one-shotted Rhino Wrestler, Child Emperor easily defeated Phoenix Man, Darkshine literally can kill demons with a light touch, Watchdog Man just does this on a regular basis, and you get the idea. The only thing we know about that monster for certain is that some fathers stated that he possesses a powerful exoskeleton that repels their attacks, which really doesn't mean anything, since we didn't really test it against powerful opponents. So as impressive as that feat is, I could only safely put Saitama above early Puri Puri Prisoner and Genos, cause these guys couldn't really finish off low to mid-tier demons in a quick fashion like Saitama did, such as the House of Evolution monsters and Dehydrated Deep Sea King. But hear me out, this is just a safe assumption since Saitama here could be as strong as Darkshine or even above. The point I'm making here is that we just could never verify that. So hopefully Murata and One drops a second data book or maybe answer questions like they used to do before. Now, the last Saitama we have before going completely bold is from an audiobook called Summer Festival with Tatsumaki. We know from the state of his hair that this takes place right before he goes bald, since Tatsumaki, when seeing Saitama, called him a samurai kappa. For those who doesn't know, a kappa is a yokai in the Japanese folklore that has a shallow hole in their head that doesn't have any hair. And the samurai in the Edo period had a tradition called the Shonmage, shaving the top of their hair, which means that Saitama here looked like this. You see, the big thing we got from this is the fact that Tatsumaki couldn't control Saitama with her psychokinetic powers, concluded that the only reason she couldn't do this is because he must be an intangible ghost. This made a lot of people in the community conclude that Saitama right here is already the strongest hero in the series, since if the number 2 S-class hero couldn't do a thing to him, obviously the others would also fail. However, it's very important to remember that we've seen another character who isn't necessarily that strong resist being controlled by psychokinetic powers. You see, in chapter 92, Garu, despite being controlled by Gero's psychic powers, quickly adapted and broke free. And since the story insinuated that Garu could be taking the same route Saitama did in removing or breaking his limiter, sharing qualities like evolving, adapting, and getting stronger, then that must mean that Saitama also adapted quickly to Tatsumaki's psychokinetic powers. However, that's not really how it happened. With Garu, he was controlled for a brief time, but with Saitama, it seemed like it never worked. So if it never worked, he never had the chance to adapt, which only means that Saitama held so much force in him that made it impossible for Tatsumaki to control him without using her full powers. Since in chapter 182, she was able to lift him up for a few seconds before collapsing and losing consciousness, and that's arguably a stronger version of Tatsumaki than the one in the audiobooks. One other thing that substantiates Saitama already being stronger than every S-class hero at that stage is Fubuki's statement at the end of the audiobook, where she clearly says that the creature must have been a dragon or more for being able to resist her sister's powers. Clearly, in my opinion, insinuating that Saitama prior to being bold became the strongest hero in the series. But again, this is just pure speculations and assumptions based on very few informations, since we've never seen him fight or display any on-screen feats. But based on that small interaction, it stands to a reason to think that characters like Flash, Darkshine, Atomic Samurai, and all of these guys wouldn't be able to win against Saitama. Blast, on the other hand, is rumored to being able to fight all of the S-class heroes combined, and if it gets revealed in the future that Saitama, even prior to getting bold, can contend with the #1 hero, I'd be very surprised, since Blast can fight god-level threats and outmatched Garu and Saitama squared punch before they connected, so I'd highly doubt that Saitama with hair would be able to win against him. But listen, we could be looking at it under a different light. Losing hair isn't really the criteria for Saitama to become strong, so it's not like the more hair he loses, the stronger he gets. That's more so what Saitama thinks. So it could be possible that Saitama during any point after 18 months of training is already as strong as when he is first introduced to us, which means that the Saitama Tatsumaki encountered in that audiobook could already be as strong as the one who fought against Boros, or at least near that level, which means that Saitama at that time could even win against Blast, even though in my opinion, Blast versus pre-Jupiter Saitama is still a conversation. So to sum up this video, Saitama after 18 months of training has a chance to defeat every single S-class hero. This is literally the period where Saitama thought he noticed a change where he became overpowered and started losing hair. Highly indicates it's the exact time he removed his limiter, which means even if he struggles with certain heroes, he'd still have his infinite potential and can evolve in an exponential rate, becoming much stronger than before. You can always compare him with Garu, where in a single night he went from being below Darkshine to fighting against Saitama. The only difference here is that Saitama has narratively been shown to evolve much faster than even Cosmic Fear Garu. However, having infinite potential doesn't mean you're invincible. Let's say 18 months of training Saitama met with a hero who's tremendously stronger than him and can one-tap him easily. Saitama wouldn't even have the chance to get stronger. Same case as Garu if the Metal Bat has connected. However, the thing we know for sure is that Saitama, who encountered Tatsumaki in that City Z festival, should already be leagues above all of them except for maybe Blast. Thank you so much for watching this video and please take good care.